To be all quiet? Are you
I
trying
am.
to be all quiet over there because your dog is there?
Yeah, he's doing very well. No, bud. Bad morning. Bad morning. It's
What?
beautiful out.
Yeah.
2 hours ago to the minute, I got news that my buddy Erby Greenwood passed.
Uh, how?
Um, God, I thought I'd be able to talk about this by now. Uh,
It's
I'm.
only been 2 hours. How could
It's
this
hard.
happen?
Well,
I,
if you recall, he okay, the COVID. I'm sorry, we're not supposed to say that. There's a lot. That's a second part of the show we got to talk about is the censorship that has happened to us. Um, so I will say during the derailment of 2020, um, you know, Irby lost his son
right,
last year, June.
right.
And he also, at that time, like a month later, had to go to the hospital because of his heart.
Oh, the,
And he was facing triple bypass. And then he got a second opinion. Literally, he was to get surgery the next, he's in the hospital to get surgery the next day, gets a second opinion. And where they put him on, I think, blood thinners and stuff, these pills that made him feel a lot better and got him by. But I'd say clearly he should have gotten the surgery. So his ex-wife, and they were on always on super good terms.
right,
They
right.
talked every day.
Yeah.
I didn't get her call last night, but she called close to 10 o'clock last night asking if I've heard from him or anything. I just got that this morning, her voicemail this morning. She hadn't, they would talk every day. And she didn't hear from him for 2 days. And when I got her voicemail this morning, I started digging up his apartment. I don't remember the apartment name. I know where it's at and stuff. I just didn't know how to look it up. Anyways, she called, so I left her a voicemail and said, "Oh my God, I will check on him right now, and I'll call you back." Well, she called me back and gave me that news that yeah, the apartment had got in there and found him in his chair. I assume that he probably passed very peacefully, and I said to Lisa, this dates back to our podcast together. Remember, we told him he would see his son again. He had all these doubts. And man, I know as soon as he saw him, he didn't look back.
I whew, I don't know what to say, Barry. I'm sure that is he was the first person that Irby saw when we got to heaven as his son. But I know that that had to be one heck of a reunion right there. And
Yeah.
this is hard to it's a tough pill to swallow, man.
It
Uh
is.
I'm very sorry to hear about this. And you know he really did cause a tremendous response from our audience, actually, who fell in love with him immediately, and were riveted by his story, and also his attitude and his ability to just speak his heart, and wasn't afraid to go ahead and speak his heart.
Yeah.
And I certainly admired that about him. I liked him right away. And I
So
remember
kind.
after the show was over, I reached out to him because I was thinking about him every day. And people were asking me about him, and I reached out to him, and he thanked me for the interview. I know he did you as well, but he also talked about how much it meant to his son's mother, and how
Janetta,
much
she's
she
so kind. Oh my
got
God.
out of it, and especially the part, Barry, that you're talking about. He
Yeah.
specifically mentioned the part about how she was so moved when I was speaking about how he would see his son again, and that's just not how God is. He wouldn't take away someone you love that much and that be the end of it. That's just not how God is. And boy, life is tough, man.
It is. And Lisa and I talked, she's like, you sure you can do the podcast? And I was out. First of all, after I got the news, I took Charlie outside, and we have this thing. I lay the towel down in the grass, lay down with him. And boy, as soon as I laid that towel down, he's like, wow, it's a party. And he's so good. Like, dogs are, they sense your feelings and try to comfort you and take it on themselves. He's so good. I was laying there processing all this and crying and stuff. And I thought, man, Barry, listen to your thoughts. Listen to yourself. You're so self-centered. All you're thinking about is yourself. How are you going to get on? What are you going to do tonight when you're, usually texting Erby, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And I looked at my phone. It was 8:00. It was a half hour since I got the news. And I thought to myself, I'll give myself this day to be self-centered and think about myself.
I think it's pretty natural when we lose somebody that we care about, that we love, just to be heartbroken. And sometimes, that can feel selfish and everything, but I got to tell you, Barry, but that, when it's time for me to go, I think I would have my feelings hurt if people's hearts weren't broken, and I think that's actually a beautiful tribute to your friend there. Actually, to be honest with you, I would be disappointed if you weren't being a little, as you call it, selfish right now, because I'd be like, well, what would happen if I left? You'd be all happy and everything. See me? That's me being selfish. But no, man. I'm just trying to lighten it up here.
Sure.
You have a big heart, and the reason that Erby was in our lives, in your life, for a reason. Really, the way you all met and the timing of your meeting and how you helped each other. There seems to have been a divine appointment there.
Agreed. He makes me a much better person because he was so kind, really about the kindest man I ever met. And you know me, I'm edgy, got this little edge to me and all that. He rounded off those edges because I felt like I had to aspire to be better because of being around him. And the coolest thing was, no matter where we were, and of course this time of year tonight, we would have been at East 55th Marina,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
But no matter where we were always the two people having the best time of anybody in the place. And so people would always try to come and infiltrate a bit. We'd entertain them for a little bit. And next thing you know, we're back in our own world again, having a blast. Lisa's like, did you guys ever, I'm going to sneeze. I think it was last week. I said, I don't think I ever sneezed on the show before.
Oh, you have.
Oh, that's allergies right there. She's like, do you ever run out of things to talk about? I said, not really. We're guys. Yeah, we'll stop talking for a bit and look around and watch people, and then we'll start talking about those people.
That's really fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
One of my favorite things to do.
But I swear to God, I don't know. I don't know how to transition.
Well, Barry, let's not transition yet, because this is important. We're this is not only your close friend, but we've chosen to do a podcast and talk
about
through
these things.
And it's over 50 starting over. And, the fact is that, we are at a certain age where, there's no age where tomorrow is not promised. We don't know. We don't know how long we have here.
Right.
And I think this is a very important point, is given that we should never end our interactions on a negative. You don't know if we're going to see that person again.
Yeah.
We should be walking around with love in our heart. We should take this situation and use it against all of these things that we think are important, and realize that, man, the real important thing is love, and how much we love each other in our relationships, man. I mean, one thing I know about Erby was, man, he spoke his heart.
Yeah,
He wasn't afraid to speak his heart. And he's up there in heaven. I know he doesn't have any regrets about that. He left a mark here on earth,
he
and
did.
he certainly left an impression on a lot of people.
Yeah.
And his wisdom will never go away. That lives on here on earth, even though he lives on in heaven, just as he lives on in heaven. And man, I tell you, we're I think a lot about, when we've talked so much about so many loved ones, our fathers who passed away much earlier than they needed to. We've got to keep that in mind and really look at every day. We're at the beginning of this day. This is the first day, or maybe the second, that Erby didn't get to be around, but we do get to be here. And we get to carry that flag forward, even in his honor. And we get to carry this show forward even in his honor. And I feel like we are so blessed to have had that light in our lives. And I want to thank you, Barry, because I heard a lot about him, but it was really you caused me to be able to meet him and actually strike up a relationship with him. And I'm so glad I got a chance to do that, because he really blessed me, man.
He definitely blessed me. Like I said, his kindness just always left a mark on me. And understand, he left behind his youngest, Tavion, who has had to deal with so much in the last year and a half, losing his dear brother. They were super close. And now, and then COVID and how that screwed up, his schooling and his relationships, and now to lose his father. I just, my heart goes out to him. I want to say something though about Janetta, his ex-wife, that he was still very close with, dear friends. They talked every day. And when she called me to tell me the news, and it's like when I met her around the time of Tazon's death last year, I just always saw such a strong mother. I mean, mother is her description. She just carries a lot of responsibility, and she rises to the occasion supremely. When she told me the news, Merle, she did so bravely, and she was thinking about me the whole time. It took a few seconds for that to sink in, and I broke down. And she's just like telling me, hey, he just always talked about you, just always look forward to seeing you, and all of these really selfless, my God, selfless. There's this motherly thing that, and some even have it more than most, but boy, when I think of her, I just think of what an amazing mother. Just strong, super strong.
What a blessing that he has her as the mother of her children, and that she's here with his youngest, and it's going to be tough for the two of them going forward, but they have each other, and to hold on to during this time, and that's going to be very, very important for them. Okay, so here's a picture of the two of you. Is this at your place at the East 55th?
No, definitely not East 55th. That's all outdoors. It's like a tiki bar. This is last winter. I think it was Oak and Barrel Room, whatever that place is called. They do all the brisket and stuff. It's the only picture that I have of us together. Guys don't typically take a lot of pictures together,
No,
so they're not very good pictures, but I thought I'd honor them.
It's so funny you say that, because I think you have a picture of the two of us on the title page of our show, but that may have been one of the only pictures of the two of us together we actually
not
have.
Many. We got one from my house in University Heights for way back, like 2000.
Yeah,
we look like a couple of kids.
Yeah. Well, Time certainly has flown. Speaking of that, so tell me, when exactly, let's just talk about this for a little bit. You met Herbie at this Herbie, I'm sorry, you met Herbie at this restaurant, correct?
Oh geez, pardon me, I got allergies. Hay fever.
Oh man.
Yeah, we met at East 55th 3 years ago. I remember
3 years ago.
We just got back. Lisa and I just got back from Colorado, checking it out, and I went there and by myself, as always. Dating went there by himself, and man, I just happened to sit next to him, and we just start talking about it, the trip and all that, just laughing, just instant chemistry. And at that time, he lived in Cleveland Heights as well, a few streets away from me. So that's kind of like how and why we, he had a bike as well. So we biked down to East 55th together a few times. And
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh my God, so fun. So East 55th, I'll probably go there this afternoon, just as kind of my own tribute to him for a couple beers. But special place in he went there all the time. Lisa went down there with a friend like last Sunday. There's Erby. She runs into Erby, and they met several times, and she just loved Erby. If I could do if I was with Erby, it didn't matter what I did. It was like, oh, he's with Erby, everything's cool. She just absolutely loved him. She made a bunch of food and stuff when he was going through his tough time losing his son, and brought it over for him and stuff. And I don't know, man. I just I think it's really important. Lisa asked if I was going to do the podcast this morning, and then I said I think it's really important that we talk about how to handle these losses. As you said a few minutes ago, you get over 50 and you run into this from time to time. And people handle things differently. I think a lot of men would be really ashamed to show tears on a show like this that's available for public. Don't be. It's a tribute. It's to your loved one. And it's also very healing. It's very cleansing. So don't be afraid to cry. You gotta let out. Give yourself at least a day of self-centeredness to feel sorry for yourself.
It's important what you're saying here, Barry. I I've been thinking a lot about that subject. Lots of people are dealing with some aspect of grief at this time, especially as we've gone through this whole COVID factor. And our bodies are much like a machine. Our computers our computers have to go through processes and cycles sometimes to be able to purge out things that need to be dealt with. And when we run into these types of things, I sometimes think, well, come on, let me just get over it. But your body needs to go through a process in order to be okay. The healing process. There's a mental healing process as well when it comes to grief, and we've all heard of the stages of grief and things like that. That's a very real thing. And I think, Barry, at times like this, we have to really give ourselves a break, like you're saying to yourself. I think that's very healthy to realize, okay, my body has to go through these things. And sometimes you might say, well, I know Erby's in heaven, so I shouldn't be upset.
Right.
Well, down here, you're not upset. In your spirit, that's where I really think your spirit is. Yeah. But in your head, your body, you got to deal with these things. So it's okay to have the grief here, but the joy here. But knowing here that this part's going to work out, your head's going to work out, and for Erby's family, it's going to be like that. I remember when my dad passed away. I know you remember what this is like. It's going to be an uphill battle for a period of time, and the pain's never going to completely go away. You'd be disappointed if it did.
True.
Because in a way, there's the pain is it's directly related to your love, and you can't let that you wouldn't want that to ever slip away.
That's a really good point. When probably, this is for some going to sound callous maybe, but probably my most traumatic loss ever was Bowser, 10 years ago or so. And, I had him since he was basically a newborn, and had him for 14 years. And we've been through everything together. And he was literally like my son and my best friend. When he passed, it was just absolutely traumatizing. And Lisa went through that with me. She saw all of it. And
Wow.
she said to me, I wish I could take this pain away. And I said, don't you dare. If you could,
I remember you saying
don't you
that.
dare.
That might have been where I got all of that.
It's the other side of that love. It all comes together. And I wouldn't want a single ounce of that love to.
I'll never forget when Bowser passed away and you called me and told me, and I immediately called my kids and told them because they loved Bowser so much. And oh my gosh, I felt so bad when I told them, because I mean, boy, they were torn up. I'm crying again already thinking about these things. But that was terrible.
When Stella passed, man, when Stella passed, like, how long did it take you to get over?
I'm not over it.
I know. I'm not over Bowser's death. And, Lainey passed away 3 years ago. I talk about that differently. She was like my little daughter, and she always looked at me like, take care of this, Dad, because she sickly.
Yeah, that was how Stella was too.
Yeah. And it was absolutely traumatizing too. But it was just different. It was like, I guess I didn't have any regrets or something. Like
maybe it was because it was your second time around.
Maybe that's it too. You got a good point.
You kind of, this is what's going to happen in the end anyhow. And that it's one of those things where it's like, love is an investment. And you're going to end up, there's going to be grief and love kind of go together, because there's a time when you got to part ways. And and sometimes that grief can be so overwhelming, but when you compare it to the joy of love, boy, there's no comparison, right?
You're right.
You do it a million times over.
And another thing about, like, when Bowser passed, I remember this clearly, that I felt like he was with me, like he was right there with me for 3 weeks after he passed. And I remember basically the evening where I felt like his soul went on. It was 3 weeks later. And now it could be said that, basically it's believed that 21 days, 3 weeks is what it takes to make or break a habit. Mm-hmm. And so it could be that was my personal transition. Maybe. Or, man, if there's one thing I know about dogs, is they're there 100% for you, not them.
They're so loyal.
They're so freaking loyal that I tend to believe that his spirit definitely said he needs me.
I'll tell you what, if I know in that dog, Bowser, that loyalty he had for you, if there was a way for him to do that, he would do that, because that's the kind of guy Bowser was.
Sure was.
And I say guy because he was definitely he was a guy.
He and I together, two guys in that house that I was remodeling all that time, me swearing and throwing things and
smoking a cigar.
Yeah, he's just looking at me like, oh man. And that's funny, because when I got Lainey, she prepared me for living with Lisa, because Lainey was so sensitive, all girl, and I couldn't.
That's how Stella was.
Like, I couldn't slam anything. I couldn't raise it would traumatize. She would get all anxious. So I had to be so kind and gentle. It really it was appropriate at the time. It's what I needed.
It reminds me of when we first got Stella, and she's just such a sweet dog, so much like Lainey, very sensitive spirit. And so she's a bigger dog, she's 65 pounds, and I think I'd had her for less than a week, and it was the weekend, and I made some bacon. I made a plate of bacon, and I put it on the island, on the counter on the island. Yeah. And nothing gets between me and my bacon. Yeah. And I walked out of the room, and when I came back, Stella was at her front paws on the thing. She was eating bacon out of there. Oh my gosh. I thought I was going to grab her by the neck. I was like so enraged. And I never touched her like that, but I yelled at her and I was like, don't you ever eat my bacon again. And boy, you should have seen her though. Her head all down and everything. She went into her little box and she didn't come out of there for like the whole day. I would come in and she'd have her head down and she'd look up at me with her little eyes and everything. Come on out, Stella. It's okay. It's not mad anymore. Yeah, I felt so bad. I never saw her do anything like that ever again. He was done with bacon forever. She was a good girl.
My stomach hurts. I'm laughing so hard.
Well, and I just last night I was thinking about her because over at my house right now, Barry, everything is in disarray because
remodeling.
Oh my gosh, I hate this so much.
Oh yeah.
What you can't see is what I can see in my office right now. All these things are all over the place. Like I'm buried in the stuff here. It took me so long to get ready this morning because I can't find anything. It's just, where is everything? They got my bathrooms all messed up. I was like gonna shave, and I looked to the mirror, and it's a wall. Wait, where's the mirror?
I thought it was just the kitchen. They're
doing the kitchen and all the bathrooms, and so
at the same time, that's ridiculous.
How do you? I did not plan this.
Right.
I tried to, put in my 2 cents.
I would move into the gym for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's crazy, and people are in and out, and there's all these contractors and everything. So, anyhow, I forgot where I was going with that whole thing. Oh, I know. So our living room is completely different. And last night I was just sitting there. Man, if Stella was here, she would be right here underneath of our feet. I could almost imagine her being right there.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like her little spirit is right with us. Anyhow,
Sure.
like I feel like she's right there. And it's been 2.5 years. So some things are just not going to change, I guess. And one day we'll have another one, but it'll be a while.
I'm starting to wonder.
Yeah, I'm sure you were wondering about yourself, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I was definitely wondering about us. But then Lisa pulled the trigger.
Well, you know what? You and Lisa making that happen makes the reality of it happening for Anne Marie and I. Because I'm almost like, we're gonna have a baby. It's a puppy.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, man. I'll never regret having him. This puppy time is going to be fleeting, and I'm really telling myself that every minute of the day. That remember all of this. I've taken tons of video and pictures, but I still think there's a lot to be said for rescuing an adult dog.
Yeah, oh, man. I do too.
Puppy time is tough.
Yeah, so tell me about some of the tough stuff you're dealing with here.
It's like having a newborn. You got to keep your eye on them 24/7, or you could be cruel and keep them in a cage somewhere.
Right.
And I just couldn't possibly do that. He's in his cage. You should see him right now.
It's funny that he just makes you laugh
like this. Yeah, his junk just hanging out. I'm free. He's right here, but I take him out at least once every 2 hours, and then I got to be out there for a little while with him. So it's made my work, and know that, hey, we have the flexibility. We work remotely. So that's something that you got to consider.
Right.
A lot of people get these dogs and leave them in a cage for 10 hours, 8-hour workday plus drive time and all that. And I think that's absolutely cruel.
Well, it's and some people don't have a choice. So it would be, with
they
their
have a
work
choice. They could not get a dog.
Well,
don't get a dog.
True. But sometimes what happens, Barry, is you have a certain lifestyle and you get a dog, and then your lifestyle changes.
That's true.
And then you got to deal with that.
That's true.
And if you have a crate trained dog, would it either that, or hopefully you can afford to bring him to a kennel, but it's in the kennel that I know my dog never liked that at all.
A lot of people will give a neighbor a few bucks to come over and let the dog out midday.
Yeah. What I did, because when we first got Stella, Anne Marie and I both worked. So, we got to do something. And Stella was a crate dog. So we put her in the crate. And then what we did was one of us would come home for lunch and we'd let her out and do, whatever during our lunch hour, but we'd have to put her back in there. And, but that didn't last for very long. After a little while, we realized that she's actually good outside of the crate. And we let her just do whatever she wanted. She was very good. So we really didn't have to worry about it. But boy, that was a tough thing, thinking about her and being in that box and everything. And but she liked it in there. That was the thing. But
when you crate train them in there forever, they feel safe. Very true. But they do feel safe when you crate train them. And that's what I largely do with this guy, except he does sleep with me at night. So
Harry, one time I was in Portland, and
here's a very dog-friendly city.
Well, Anne-Marie had a trip that she had to go on, and she had to leave before I got back. Actually, the timing of it was going to be, I would be just getting home when she was leaving. But as things happen at airports, I got to my flight and they had overbooked the flight, and I didn't have a seat. And so I'm like, well, when's the next flight? It wasn't until the next day. Well, Anne-Marie was already on her way to the airport to get on a plane. And here Stella's in the box. And I'm not going to be home until sometime the next day. I'm like, she's not going to make it in there. And I made a big scene at the gate and everything. And my dog, I don't want my dog to die. And somebody had compassion on me and traded tickets with me.
Oh my God, really?
Yep.
What a great story.
Gosh, that is there's people, even at the airport, people have a heart for dogs, boy. If
it were possible, if my schedule permitted, if it were possible, I would definitely do that.
Yeah, and that's what happened. And they were offering a hotel room and everything like that. So this person was gonna, at least have that. But I was so grateful. That person was like an angel to me.
Yes.
And I was so happy when I got home and was able to let Stella out of there. Ooh, that's a tough thing. But just, not having that responsibility is pretty freeing also. So
it is.
You got 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other.
It's huge. I mean, just like me going out with Erby on these happy hours. It's like, well, the first time 2 weeks ago, he's like, East 55th. And I'm like, man, I can't, I got to ride my bike there. Well, there's an extra hour of time.
Yeah.
And so we met very local to me, but man, even still, I had the hardest time leaving him. I remember we were out until 8:20. I remember because Lisa texted me, "You okay?" And we were just having the best time. I had the hardest time leaving.
Was that the last time you saw him?
No. Last Friday we went to East 55th.
Is that right?
And that's so appropriate.
That's really cool that was the last time that you guys got together and everything at your favorite spot.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to just go ahead.
And we were having obviously a great time. It's this beautiful night, and there's a girl that works there as we just say a cocktail waitress, something like that, a waitress. And she's like 45-ish to 50-ish, close to our age, I could tell. And I thought she was classy. She had this classiness about her, and seemed like she looked at Erby a bit. I'd pay attention to that. And, I'd talk to him a bit like, I think she kind of likes you. And anyways, I thought about calling him the other day to find out. He said so she came up to our table last Friday.
Right.
And it's the first time we ever talked to her, really. We just always saw her from afar. She knew who we were because we were always there. And she introduced herself and said that tomorrow was her last day here because she needed something more stable. And anyways, so Erby, because we always talked about, you don't poop where you eat, where you work kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like if he asked her out and something didn't work out, it's our favorite spot.
To find a new spot.
Well,
I saw that on Seinfeld one time.
Yeah. So Saturday was going to be her last day. And Erby said he was going to come up and talk to her, ask her out. And I was thinking all week about calling him and finding out if he did.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I never got the chance.
Oh.
And that's another one of those regrets. Like, God, if you only knew, I would have been with him every day of last week, just appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I know what you mean. And that's another thing is you just never know, right? So
Yeah.
you got to make time for the people that you love. That's the message,
Yeah.
right? Hey,
Yeah.
here's another aspect of Irby's life that I think, the way that he was found in his chair.
Yeah.
He's in his chair. He's at peace.
Yeah.
He's probably, my dad died. He had a heart attack. He was in his
Great way
favorite
to
chair.
go. Yeah.
He was reading, my
Great way
dad was
to go.
reading the Bible actually when it happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He had actually been underlining some stuff in the Bible. And then he had his heart attack.
Wow.
And the interesting thing was that he had laid down, I guess my mom took the Bible and laid it down on the bed right to the page that he was underlining. So, the whole thing was so crazy. And then finally we end up back at the house at the end, and I couldn't wait to see what was he underlining. And the most amazing thing happened, that he was underlining. My dad was always afraid of dying until he became a Christian. He's totally lost that fear. And that was only the last 3 years of his life.
Oh.
And so what he had underlined was from Psalm 112. And he was underlining the commentary on the Psalm. And it said this, that if you have fear of the Lord, and it said in parentheses, respect, reverence, and that's not fear like I'm afraid, but reverence, then you need not fear anything else, not even death.
Agreed.
That's what he was underlining. And he had his heart attack and he died. And this was such a comfort that that's what was left behind, was that there was no fear and in this whole transition. And I think about Erby went the same way my dad did. And I just think I just have this in my head that there was no fear for Erby.
Right.
And that's a big deal, man.
No, it sure is.
That we're facing a big transition here, but the fact is, with God, we don't have to be afraid.
Agreed. And I base my beliefs in the afterlife mostly on all of the near-death experiences that I've read about, seen shows on, and all of that. It's just something that has always riveted me, been fascinated by it, and they're very consistent. And you're virtually always greeted by your loved ones. I have no doubt that Erby was immediately greeted by Tezan. Like, they were just this far away from each other anyways, inches away from each other,
I believe that too.
Yeah. So I think it's a beautiful thing. He deserved a peaceful exit more than anybody. It's kind of the way he lived his life. Didn't make waves. He was gentle, and he permeated this gentleness all around him. Like I said, he really eroded the edges off of me. And I just appreciate him. I feel so robbed, though, that we'd only been friends for like 3 years. And I just took for granted that we were going to be friends for life, that.
Yeah. When I think about that, I think about the fact that, I can't help thinking of God in this situation and how he knew that there was going to be a 3-year period, and that it was for some reason, and I think you could probably think of a lot of them, that it was very important for the two of you to meet and be friends for that 3 years. And I just also believe that Erby needed to have a friend like you for the last 3 years of his life.
I agree.
And what a blessing. I mean, Barry, you've been such a tremendous blessing to me ever since we met when I was 20 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think about the fact that, gosh, if I didn't have you in my life, but had you for the last 3 years, whew, that would be a huge blessing to me. And he had you for the last. He came to he didn't know he was at the end, but at the end he had a great friend like you
He
by his
sure
side.
did. He had no idea how much I love that guy.
I think
But
I do have an idea.
do you remember that I told the story before when we met that day at East 55th 3 years ago, and Lisa and I just got back from Colorado. I didn't know it. It took me about 2 months to put it together, but I started piecing things together. And, he lost his dear girlfriend of like 12 years, something like that. A long time girlfriend and like soulmate type stuff.
Right.
Lost her 2 weeks prior to when we met, if I recall. I think it was 2 weeks. And he
Yeah,
never mentioned that.
I remember him. I
Yeah.
remember we talked about that
Yeah.
on the show when
Yeah.
he was on. And so there it is right there, is that, he was making a giant transition in life. And here comes Barry Edwards. And, Barry, there's just, you're a person that I've always found that I can talk to on a deeply interpersonal level. And you understand, you're very compassionate. Like you downplay that, but you are a very compassionate person who really is in touch. You're very in touch with your own feelings, and you're very in touch with you're very intuitive about other people's feelings, and you have a calmness about you that you can speak to people that are in pain. And you know what? and besides all that, you're just fun to be around, and
buddy, that's
I just think
nicest.
about like what you brought to the friendship between you and Erby. I just think what a blessing that he was able to have that in the last 3 years. And for both of you, I know you were blessed as well.
Yes.
And so you said, it's like, you could have missed that. Your paths could have just missed each other at that fateful day at the restaurant.
There's no coincidences, buddy.
No, I don't believe it either.
No,
that's pretty cool, man.
Thank you for your words, man. That's like the nicest thing I've ever heard. Thank you so much,
Barry. I've been thinking a lot about you and I and meeting you.
I have as well. I was thinking a lot about our trip to Put in Bay actually yesterday.
Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Let me get back.
But go ahead with what you were saying.
Thinking about this is that I got this book, and where did I do with it? I had it. I've had it with me until this very moment. But it's called Kent State, and it was written in 71, at the end of 71, and it's about the whole experience of the Kent State shooting and everything. And I found it. I think I told you about this months ago. I found it in a friend of mine's garage, and she was trying to clear out all these books. And I'm like, oh, I'll take that. And so one day I was just sitting here, and I just this past week, and I saw it in my bookcase. I'm like, I really do want to know what the heck happened, because I'm still not really sure. Like, you know what I mean? We went to school there and everything. They talked to us about it.
That's all they talked about.
But I still didn't really understand what the heck? Why did that happen? And so I started reading it, and this author is really very detailed. And so he started to describe the campus to the point where I was there on campus.
Wow.
In my head, I was right. I could smell it. You know what I mean? Like there's like fresh air there. And like when you're walking in between the classes, it's a beautiful campus.
It is.
Lots of trees and open spaces and everything.
Black squirrels.
Oh yeah. And those black squirrels.
Those tiny, they're so thin. They look like they weighed about half a pound.
It was like you were in a different planet. Like what happened to the squirrels? Is that a black squirrel that just came over? Yeah. But I started to get that giddy feeling, and I started to think about you and I remember the first time we met, or the first time you and I decided to go out. We went to the Loft to get pizza and a pitcher of beer or something like that.
That was the first time we went out?
Yeah, just the two of us. We were like, come on, let's go. And
I remember what you're talking about.
I really like that pizza. And you're like, come on.
It was $2. $2 on Tuesday.
That was the thing. And we had that. And I think from that moment, we were inseparable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, just, going back to that Kent State and those days, what a great time that was, and just great friends and great atmosphere, lots of laughs and everything. What a great time in life that was.
It was very important, a super important time in life. And honestly, Merle, for us to be friends all these years later, dear friends like this, it means everything to me. I guess getting back to something of the theme of the show, grief is like, losing Erby so hard and everything, losing you would be like the hardest thing I could ever imagine. But we, at this age, we have to be prepared. Many of us have gone through this recently. Many of us are going to go through this very soon, losing a parent. We both lost our fathers years ago, but when my mom is turning 80 in in a few weeks,
Right. Yeah.
and sooner or later, I'm going to lose her. And that is, I mean, she is so, I'm going to sneeze again. I got hay fever. God, sorry.
Wow, it's really got you over there.
Yeah. I got the windows open. It's such a beautiful day. I'll
Oh.
suffer with the hay fever. It's rare that I get it. But when I lose my mom, it's not going to be just me. It's going to be my entire extended family. She's the nucleus of it all. And we're doing some special things for her in the coming weeks, which I'll tell you about after. But I just want to discuss a little bit, because I know and I hate to even verbalize it, but when you lose your mom, it's going to be absolutely traumatizing. So to prepare for this, you and I have had this talk many times over the years, and I think it's very, very healthy that we contemplate this stuff, that you contemplate losing that loved one, whether it's my dear friend Merle, whether it's my mother, that when you're having a quiet time alone at night, I like to drink beers and have a cigar outside, and contemplate these things as if they happen for real. I've mentioned doing that with our dogs because it's very traumatizing losing a dog.
Right.
This takes the ear. There's a bit like, it is a Western thing that we don't talk about death.
No.
We don't think about it. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. And it's a horrible ritual that we have. And because when death arrives, then you're hit with this irrational fear, all these emotions that flood the gates, because you're just so unprepared for it. If you contemplate, and that's a Buddhist principle, to contemplate death. If you contemplate death, the death of your own death, the death of your loved ones, it takes the irrational part out of it. You're always going to cry and grieve your loss. That's a very real thing, but it takes the irrational aspect out of it.
We've talked about this before, and I think it's important as well. And I think about my mom, who's 81 now, but she's in great shape. Sure. And she looks so young and everything, and so it seems like she's gonna be here forever.
I know that's same about my mom, but come on, man, let's not.
Well,
I
hope she is. I just hope she is.
Agreed.
The thing, and the reality is that we all have to cross that bridge, right?
Yeah, right.
And my mom and I, we talk about it, and we're very realistic about the whole thing. But my mom is one of my best friends. It's like, how you and I can just get on and talk, and it just never seems to end. That's exactly the way it is with my mom. Sure. And I'm pretty blessed that I have a friendship with my mom like that, because a lot of people don't. And so I think about, what would happen if I couldn't just call up my mom? Because I literally talk to her like several times a week. Yeah. And she's such a great sounding board and mentor and encourager. I just can't actually imagine what life is going to be like when she's not here. Okay. And I prefer not to. That's what I've gotten to, is that, you know what? I'm just not going to think about that. But I can tell you this, that I know that when my mom passes, I know exactly where she's going. And we talk about this as well. And I think that having those kinds of conversations are very healthy, because,
Agreed.
Even though I can't even imagine dealing with that whole thing, but, eventually everybody's got to deal with that. that I know that's going to be a great source of comfort for me. And I feel like no matter how far away she is from me, I'm always going to just feel her right here, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
that's the thing. My mom, we haven't seen each other for almost 2 years. It'll be in March because of the whole COVID thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, but gosh, it doesn't feel like it. We talk all the time, and I see her. We have that Bible study we do every 2 weeks, and she's so good at leading that Bible study too. See her; she's so impressive. I mean, I want to be like her. She is really, and nothing. She probably will correct me on this, but nothing really ever seems to bother her either. Wow. And I envy that. Like, I want to be like that. Like,
well, you and I are softies. Like
I've been crying like this whole episode.
we are very open to our feelings, and I think that's a great thing.
I do too. Growing up, Barry, I had this real problem between my dad and I because I'm very sensitive and he wasn't.
Same with my father and I, right? Those guys from the 70s.
Yeah. And he hated it when I was emotional. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would make him angry, which of course would make me more emotional. So it was like this like machine that would happen that just kept escalating. Like, he would say stuff like, "Oh, you're gonna cry about that? I'll give you something to cry about." I used to think, okay, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, and I'm never gonna say that to my kids, and I'll never forget how bad I felt the first time that came out of my mouth. I'm so mad at myself.
The one thing I've always told myself I would never say is "kids these days."
Yeah,
and I've
like almost every day.
Yeah, I've said it many times, but I always said I wouldn't.
Well, sometimes I think, this is what you were seeing? Because sometimes I just think, did we really look like that? Like that is you pretty much did. Anyway, so yeah, but I do think, Barry, for men, that having this tough exterior all the time and not being able to show your emotions is not good. I think it's damaging.
I think it is too. And I want to tell you, Merle, I've always admired this about you, that you always embraced, I'm going to sneeze again. You've always embraced your own sensitivity. Like, you've even worn it as a badge of honor, which I think serves as a great example for everybody around you. I just love that about you.
Oh, and thanks for saying that. And Anne Marie says she loves that too. I've struggled with that, Barry, to be honest.
Sure, of course.
Like, because of my dealing with my whole dad thing and all. But I gotta. So I think I've told this story before, but I used to go to this church in Denver, Maryland.
I know the story. It's a great story. Go ahead.
And I love, like, if I'm going into a classroom or whatever, I like to sit in the front, because I like to just be really involved.
Me too.
And I would sit like in the first or second row, and I'm like the tallest guy there. So anyway, during praise and worship, for some reason, it just gets me, man. Every single time it makes me cry. I can barely sing.
I think you're very empathetic and you feel the energy in the room.
You know what I feel? I feel God's love for me. There's something about that kind of agape love. I see it in movies, that self-sacrificing love. It always makes me cry.
Me too.
Every single time. And as soon as I start singing those songs, I feel that it's like a shower of love on me, and it just makes me like a blubbering baby. I mean, I try not to be like, like that's the ugly cry. I'm really trying not to be that person. But then I know, like, everyone can see me because my head is above everybody else. And I don't like that. So just keep looking forward. Don't look to the side. Don't look back, because they're going to see me. And so that was my gimmick, just keep looking straight and it's going to be fine. Yeah. And this is embarrassing, but it does feel good, but it is embarrassing. So one day I was leaving church Oh, by the way, I very much admired the band. They were very good. And I wanted to be, I play guitar. I was like, boy, I'd love to jam out with those guys. So one day I'm leaving church and one of the band members or singers two of them came up to me and they said, we just want to thank you. And I was like, thank me? Why? Well, we get so inspired when we see you while we're playing, and the emotions that just well up inside of your tender heart every time. And we see you crying over there and we just play to you.
Oh my God.
Like, oh, thank you.
You never told me that before.
Well, and then when I walked away, I was like, oh my God, they're looking at me the whole day. Everyone's looking at me. I like drove home. I was so humiliated.
But you're inspiring people.
Oh, I couldn't hear that in my mind at the time.
I was
just, everyone's looking at me crying. And so I prayed on the way home that God would take that away from me.
That's what I remember.
So
I remember this
is why I prayed this. Is because I felt so humiliated. Like, I can't believe they're all looking like they're playing to me because of this.
The big baby in the front row.
I'm like, I'm the biggest guy in church, and I'm like baby Huey. And so I pray to God, and God is so faithful, but I didn't know. Because I didn't know until the next time I was in church, the next week. And the music comes on, and I start to sing, blah, 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 whatever. Nothing. I'm good. I can do
this. You prayed
yeah.
that God would take
what
that
happened
away.
was I was very excited that I could sing without crying. But then about halfway through praise and worship, I started to realize that I was missing. Like, wait a second, I'm not feeling all this love coming. I'm missing.
Yeah.
I prayed to cut that off. You fool.
Yeah.
And then I was desperate and I prayed, God, please bring it back. And it was like turning a faucet on. Literally, because I started crying immediately. Thank you, Lord. Though, I mean, it's the thing. I'd rather go through life feeling love and experiencing love. And there's a payment
so much more rich.
There's a payment you have to make for that love, right? Like to accept that love.
You just made the perfect analogy about a full circle thing about what I said about Bowser, that I said to Lisa. She's like, I wish I could take your pain away. And I said, don't you dare.
That's it right there. And every friendship that we have is that kind of investment that we make. You talked about it too. The time that it took you an hour to get there, an hour to get back, but it was worth the investment. And now here's the thing is, when you invest like that, you're going to feel that pain when stuff like this happens, but it's worth the return on investment is exponential.
It is.
And man, I think about when my cousin Keith passed away of ALS, and we had become such great friends in that process. And when he was gone, oh man, I cried for days. I couldn't help myself. But you know what?
That was like a year ago, wasn't it?
No, it was many years ago. Now it seems like a year ago, but it was many years ago. And he's up in heaven now. I know now that there's football in heaven, and he's up there playing. And I know that I don't know if I want to play any football when I get up there, but I'll definitely be cheering him on when I get up there.
That's nice, man.
Yeah, there's a whole crowd of folks up there waiting for us now.
I thought that he passed during our tenure with O5O.
No. He passed. Boy, it's amazing how long ago that was. I think it was 10 years ago now. It's
really
been quite some time. Yes. But it does seem like it was yesterday, man. I mean, the whole thing was just an epic adventure with him. It really was. That ALS, boy, I tell you, that is straight from hell.
Yeah, well, we've had a couple experiences with pancreatic cancer in our family, and that's horrifying. It's like 3 weeks of pure hell. Yeah.
Anne Marie's dad died of pancreatic cancer at 31.
Cancer's just awful in every regard.
It's terrible. It's funny. Let me just say this. I was at one of my favorite places to go to when I ride my motorcycle, and I got there early and nobody was there. It's called the Old Place. Except for this guy was riding around on a bicycle, and he had a little kid on the bicycle seat in front of him. So he was just kind of riding around like this, but he had this shirt on that said F cancer on his back.
Oh, I like that.
I did too, but it was just kind of funny with that little kid out there.
That makes me think of Dan the fireman. My buddy says, he goes, dude, you need to get a rickshaw. I'm like, what's a rickshaw?
What?
He goes, because he knows I can't go anywhere without my bike, and now I got my dog.
Oh,
And
there
I
you go.
get,
Okay.
and he's like, so it's like a side cart. People use them for both dogs and kids, but I can hook it up to my bike and take Charlie wherever I go on my bike.
No, that's actually a pretty cool idea. I
It is.
like
I
that.
think it's actually a very practical idea. Like,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
put those two together immediately for me.
Wow, I could see
I might
that.
need to look into that.
Yeah, yeah, I could totally see
And I
that.
think Charlie would love that once he got used. He's a baby right now. He's got to grow up a little bit.
Yeah, well, no kidding.
Oh, hey,
man.
so a couple things I was thinking. He's got to grow up a little bit because every time we're in the car, I take him like to Painesville to see the family and stuff. I did yesterday. He always throws up. Like when we're almost there, he throws up. And I think about it, like, I never had a dog that really did that before, but he's a baby and his insides are going side to side and up and down.
Poor thing. Yeah, he's getting seasick back there.
I mean, he looks okay, but
he's all green though, actually.
Yeah.
You can't see it through the fur.
When he's no longer a baby, I think that he'll be fine with that. But I went out yesterday to my brother's to take down a couple dead trees, like these tall trees. He's got this giant backyard, and he lives kind of almost in the middle of the woods with he and his wife. They just built this beautiful.
What town does he live in?
It's right on the border of Painesville and Leroy.
Oh, okay.
But you would think it was Leroy. Leroy's kind of country like.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what it's like. And so he is talking about these trees that need to come down for a little while, and I told him I'd make some time. Yesterday was the day, and we were texting, and he's telling me he thinks it's going to take like 2 hours, and I'm like, dude, I'm taking 6. Those are tall trees, and the whole 9 yards. Anyways, I get out there. He's already got the ropes up in there, so there's ropes close, like midway up, as high as his tall ass ladder would get.
Right.
So that it's on a pulley. And my job is to pull this so it doesn't, because they're slightly leaning towards the house. So we need to pull them the other way. Right. So then he cuts the notch in the one side, and then you cut down the back so that it will then hopefully go where you want it to. Huh. Anyways, man. Oh, so I had my mom come over too, because I brought Charlie, and my mom watches Charlie with her dog, Rusty, and he and I.
Wow, it's a party.
Dude, we got both those trees down in 15 minutes.
You're kidding me.
I'm not kidding you. Like we couldn't believe it. It just went really well. And so then I'm standing there. He's like, well, that's all I needed. And I'm like, well, you got these 2 giant trees in your lawn. Why don't we? I said, I got the time. Why don't we cut them up? Yeah. Hour later, man. And so just threw it all in the woods.
Yeah.
And hour and a half. There was no sign of those 2 big ass trees.
That's pretty cool.
Nobody could
That's
believe
pretty
it.
amazing, right?
His wife Carol went to a doctor's appointment. She was gone an hour and a half. She gets back. Trees, no sign of the trees. She couldn't.
That is really neat. I really love that. Pretty cool stuff.
And it was fun. Like I said, I always have a good time working with my brother. It's just fun.
You know what? That's really a cool thing that you get to do with your brother, and you have like these kind of adventures with outdoor stuff together.
Yeah, working with our hands, doing physical stuff. Love that. Yeah. I told him too, like we're standing there 15 minutes later, the trees are down. He's like, oh, that's all I need. I'm like, dude, if I go home clean and not sweaty, Lisa's gonna think I'm cheating on her. So by the end of that,
some perfume on you.
Yeah. By the end of it, I was dirty and sweaty as we normally are.
Roll around out there
because we gotta start wrapping this up. But I wanted to mention, I meant to talk a lot about this, but as things went.
Right.
But so we got threatened by YouTube to be deplatformed. And
yes, we did.
And we have to watch a lot of things that we say. I'm no longer going to talk about that horrible infection that's been going around the world by name. I guess we can call it. I decided on something. I forget the term, a synonym I was going to use, but whatever. There's 2 scientists that we were discussing, 2 leading scientists in America, evolutionary biologists. We were discussing their work, their findings, and that is one of the main reasons, because there is a medicine Again, can't say that. There's a very particular word for this medicine that would get us deplatformed in a minute. And what bothers me is that we were talking with factually and stating our sources. And additionally, when I upload our videos into O5O, I have to declare what it is. And I could go news and politics or blah, 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 or blah, blah, blah. I go with entertainment. I don't want the responsibility of saying that we are news and politics when largely what we're doing is discussing our opinions about news and politics that are going on.
Right.
So I put it as entertainment. For Google and YouTube, same thing, synonymous,
right.
to take it upon themselves to censor us in such a vicious manner for what we did it angers me beyond belief. We emailed back and forth, and I said, I just have a ton of really dark emotions, a lot of just, I despise them more than I ever have. What do you think about this, Merle?
Well, as far as the dark feeling goes, I had the same thing. I mean, it was like, I think the first thing I thought is that you're not allowed to have your own opinion in America anymore. And it took the wind, right? I mean, it felt like I got kicked in the stomach when I read what they had said about our episode. And I think it was the talk about the drug and those two people. I don't think it was the virus that we were talking about, because we talk about the virus all the time and we never had any problem with that. So I don't think it's that, Barry. I think it has, specifically, it was warning us. It said that we were talking about a harmful medication that is proven to be harmful, as if it was not harmful. Well, that's just not the truth.
It's not the truth.
That's a lie. And we
know
that's
angers
a lie.
Me so bad.
And so this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a platform that sponsors lies and wants to force the people that speak to uphold their lies and betray our own integrity by doing that. Agreed. And that is ugly. Said. It's disgusting, and it's not American. This is an attack on our freedom. A full frontal attack on our freedom is happening through Google and YouTube. That is happening. We just experienced it. So the fact is that if you tell the truth, you will be penalized, and they've actually threatened to boot us off forever.
And we probably will be. I want to just say this. Please, for the love of God, people, go to over50startingover.com and sign up for our email list, because we could be gone. In fact, I'm not sure if this will actually get uploaded. When people get penalized, they're usually deplatformed for about 7 days or something like that. So hopefully this is going to get up there. But if you sign up for our email list, we'll tell you where we'll be if we are not, if you typically find us on YouTube. I know most of you, thankfully, subscribe to our podcast, and I implore you to do that as well, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Google Play will probably take us off, but most people subscribe to Apple Podcasts. So however you do it, please subscribe to us on there. We will always be there. But as for video, I'm thinking about this. I've been thinking about it all week. If we have to go to Vimeo or something like that, if we have to self-host it, I don't know. We'll figure out something. We will get deplatformed at some point.
At some point, it's probably sure, and we should probably wear that as a badge of honor.
Yes.
But you're right, Barry. There are other platforms that we can utilize, but that is the threat: is how long will those be there? There's certainly an attack on these things. These corporations, these big tech companies, are being used as a proxy, actually, by our own government to control our speech, and that's actually non-constitutional.
Yes,
it is constitutional for these companies to be able to do these types of things. It's not constitutional for the U.S. government to use these platforms as a proxy whatsoever. And we've seen that. I think especially over the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of fiddling around on our as far as our free speech is concerned. And I think, when the New York Post article was censored back in October of last year, to me, that was a big inflection point in our First Amendment freedoms being taken away, blatantly being stolen from us. And it seems like things are ratcheting up. As this is affecting us personally now in many different ways.
Yeah, seriously, Google needs to be broken up as a monopoly for sure. It's very, very evident. So you mentioned about how, yes, it's a violation of our free speech, yet they're a private company, so they can do what they want. Well, they're so infiltrated into our lives and into our government that how do I say that? It's crossed the line where it is a violation of free speech. They no longer are like a private company
Well, and then when you start to look at what they're actually doing with their algorithms and how they're purposely dividing the citizenry and disuniting us, and the fact that now they're 100% in charge of our news cycle, that now becomes a threat to the American way of life. And we see how this is happening in such a powerful way. It is really like we've opened Pandora's box, and we are dealing with the consequences of that. And we can see how it's being used by our politicians in a nefarious way. It is really, really smacking us in the face right now. And something's got to be done very soon, or it's going to be too late, because we're on a slippery slope right now.
You made a good point a week or two ago when I said, oh, well, thank God Trump's suing the big tech for this kind of stuff. And you said, yeah, but now you put Trump's name on it, and that dirties the whole thing. It muddies the water.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
That's a good point.
I wish that it weren't the truth, but his name now has been used as a weapon against freedom.
Yeah, so now everybody's going to be all for anti-free speech because Trump's name's on free speech.
Yeah. See, this is what, and we're seeing the biggest anomalies, the biggest hypocrisies that are happening in politics right now. How do we let them get away with this? I mean, it's almost like you've got to go left in order to go right. It's just like Cori Bush, Congresswoman Cori Bush, saying earlier this week that she needs to have this investment of a police detail to protect her because her job is too important to provide freedoms for the rest of the country.
And
we need to wait. In the same breath, she says, and defunding the police is the number one thing. Wait a second. What? You need to have police protection so that you can defund the police? How does she not get run out of town saying something like that?
Amazing. But she's a professional protester, and that's all she is. And dude, we got to wind this up. We'll take this into the after show. It's getting passionate now, folks. Getting passionate. So stick with us for the after show if we could ever upload. Catch it on the podcast. All right. All right. Listen to it on the podcast. Please subscribe there. And I love you, Erby Greenwood. This one's for you. See you guys next week.